Welcome to the Bodhi Academy. My name is Shrutika and today let us continue with the third part of our chapter Transport in Plants from standard level. So in our previous videos what we have covered is how transportation of water happens in plant, which are the mechanisms for transportation, and we have also seen how what is the plant this water and plant relationship in the plant. So we have seen the mechanism and the plant water relationship till now. So today we will see how absorption of water happens by the plant. So absorption of water by plants. So absorption of water by plant, water is absorbed along with mineral solutes by root hair by diffusion. So we have seen the mechanism of how water gets into the plant, that is the diffusion part we have covered in our previous videos, that we know what is diffusion. So it is the basically it is the movement of water solute from a region of a higher concentration to a region of lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. So water is absorbed along with the mineral solutes by the root hair by diffusion. The absorbed water passes to deeper layers by two pathways. So how this transport, see, absorption of water happens through the root cells, yes or no? So we all know that this is a plant and this is the main root, that is the primary root, which will again have small roots which we call as the root hair. This primary root will help in making the plant steady inside the soil. But who will absorb the water? The water is absorbed through the root hairs. So this root hairs will go deep into the soil in search of water. So this is how they will be spread inside the soil, so that they can absorb the water, which is very essential for the process of photosynthesis for the plant. So this root hair will absorb the water molecules from the soil. So this is how water is absorbed by the plant. Through what? Through the root hair by the process of diffusion. And the absorbed water passes through the deeper layer of the, so now we know that water is absorbed, but how it will reach the inner layer of the plant, and through those layers then the water will be supplied into the plant. As we all know how human body has vascular system, that we have blood vessels, veins and arteries, which helps in carrying the blood into our body throughout the different organs of our body. Same way in plants also there is a vascular system. Yes, this vascular system consists of xylem and the phloem. So xylem is responsible for conduction of water. So the water which is absorbed by the root hair will be transported to the xylem of the plant, so that the xylem tissues can supply it to the other parts of the plant. So how this process happens, that is from the xylem to the from the root hair the water has to be absorbed, that is from the root soil. Okay, the water has to be absorbed by the root hair, then that has to be transported to the xylem, which is the water conducting tissue, which will then further transport it to the other parts of the plant. So how this process happens? This process happens through two pathways, and these two pathways are the apoplastic pathway and the symplastic pathway. So these are the two pathways which helps in absorption of the water by the root hair and then transporting it to the xylem tissue. So how these pathways work, that we will learn now. That is, first pathway is the apoplastic pathway. So it consists of non-living part of the plant such as the cell wall and intercellular spaces. So that is apoplastic pathway, the water will be transported to the xylem through the cell wall and the intercellular spaces. That is the cell wall and the intercellular spaces. So water will travel the cell wall and intercellular spaces to reach what? To reach the xylem. There is a little resistance in the movement of water. It is fast, and the metabolic state of root does not affect the apoplastic pathway. So this is how the apoplastic pathway, it consists of the non-living parts of the plant, okay, such as the cell wall and the intercellular spaces, that will help in carrying the water through these parts, and then through these parts the water will be reaching the xylem. So now let us see what is the symplastic pathway. So symplastic pathway, it consists of a living part of the plant body such as the protoplast connecting to the plasmodesmata. Some resistance occurs in the movement of water and it is slightly slower. Metabolic state of the root directly affects the symplastic pathway. So this happens in symplastic pathway. What happens is the water has to travel different layers of the plant cells. So it will pass through different layers and then it will reach the vascular system, that is the xylem tissue. So now let us understand this apoplastic pathway and symplastic pathway using the diagram. So this is a diagram which represents the pathway of water movement in the root. So basically these are the different layers of the root. Okay, this is the epidermis. So this is the epidermis, the cortex, the endodermis and the pericycle. Okay, so these are the different layers of what? These are the different layers of the root. Then comes the xylem. So this is the basic diagram of a root, section of the root, as in how the cells are arranged and which are the different cells which are present in the root system. Okay, so over here the light brown color represents your symplastic pathway and the dark brown color represents your apoplastic pathway. So over here now water has to be absorbed from the soil. Okay, water from soil. Okay, water from the soil has to be absorbed and then it has to pass through these different layers and reach what? Reach the xylem. That is what? Your vascular which helps in transport of water. Okay, so these two things we know. Now how that mechanism occurs? First let us see what is the symplastic pathway. So first is your symplastic pathway. So in symplastic pathway what happens is the water is first absorbed by the root hair. The root hair consists of the first tissue that is called an epidermis, that is the outermost layer of the root. So the water will first pass through the epidermis into the cortex, then through the cortex it will enter the endodermis, that is the inner layer of the root. Then comes your pericycle, and then from through the pericycle it will pass through the pericycle and then it will reach the xylem. Then the xylem will transport it to the other parts of the plant. This is what? This is the symplastic pathway. Now let us see how apoplastic pathway works. So apoplastic pathway, it is basically represented by the dark brown color. So apoplastic movement, it occurs through the outer non-living parts of the cell. That is, this is what now? This is the cell membrane, that is the plasma membrane. So water will enter into not inside the epidermis, but it will travel through the plasma membrane like this, and then through the intercellular spaces of the cell, and then it will reach your xylem. So this movement will not happen through the different layers of the cell, but it will move from the plasma membrane or the intercellular spaces which are present in the cell, and then it will go into the xylem tissue. So this is how symplastic and apoplastic pathway works, which helps in absorption of water from the roots through the xylem tissue. So let us understand this using a real diagram of the root tissue. So over here what we can see is, okay, so over here we can clearly see that this is a section of the root tissue. So this is your root section. So the root tissue will have your root hair. These are the root hair. These tiny structures which we can see are the root hairs. The outer layer called as the epidermis, then this is the cortex layer, which then further you have a endodermis layer, and then comes your vascular system, which consists of the phloem and the xylem. Okay, so how symplastic pathway works is, it will see the root will absorb the water, then it will travel the root hair, then it will cross the cortex layer, then it will cross the endodermis layer, and then from there it will enter your xylem tissue. So this is your symplastic pathway. How the apoplastic pathway works over here, see, it is absorbed by the water is absorbed by the cell wall of the cell, then from the cell wall through the intercellular spaces it will go through your xylem. Okay, so this is how simple apoplastic movement occurs in plant. So this is how movement of water occurs in the plant through the symplastic and the apoplastic pathway. So today what we have covered is absorption of water by plants, and how this absorption of water happens in plant is through the apoplastic and the symplastic pathway. And we have seen in detail how the apoplastic and symplastic pathway occurs, that is how the movement of water occurs through this apoplastic and symplastic pathway. So thank you for watching today's video. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to the Bodhi Academy.